I hope they get a sense of the spirit of the school. And I think by that, I mean that there's a very, very particular coming together of faculty and students right now in the School of Architecture that feels very alive and vital and committed. And so I think it's a really interesting historical moment in the school, and I hope that comes across.
Hello, I'm Etan, and welcome to the second episode of our mini-series for RCA 2024. If you're not aware, RCA 2024 is a series of exhibitions, events, and activities presented by our amazing postgraduate students, and it is running across the summer this year. RCA 2024 is now in full swing. You might have attended the School of Arts and Humanities exhibition in June. It was an amazing event across 4 days. And thank you so much if you did attend. We hope you will join us for the next phase of the event. You are listening to our Dean's Downloads, where we'll be catching up with the deans of our 4 schools at the RCA, finding out what their school has planned for the event. And for this chat, I was joined by Dr. Adrian Lahoud, who is Dean of the School of Architecture. We spoke on Zoom on a beautiful summer's day in June. This school will be taking their work off-site for RCA 2024. They're exhibiting in the Truman Brewery, which is a really lovely space in Shoreditch in East London. If you joined us for RCA 2023 last year, you may have come there and seen what our students were up to. There was work from our School of Architecture there, so you may have kind of gotten a sense of what they're all about. Please do come back and see RCA 2024 if that is the case. This school has 4 programs exhibiting. They are MA Architecture, City Design, Environmental Architecture, and Interior Design. So there's something for everybody in there. Adrian chatted with me a bit about how those programs operate and the themes that they work within, and also about how the school is different perhaps from other architecture education based on the fact that it sits within an art and design college. And how that, informs the kinds of people who come to study with us, as well as what they go on to do next and the kinds of work that they produce while they're here with us. The event is taking place from Friday to Sunday, the 12th to the 14th of July. It's open from 12 to 5 p.m. on Friday, with a later closing of 6 p.m. on the weekend. Last entry is half an hour before closing time, so please make sure you get in early. This is a free event. You do not need to register, so just show up. And if you want any more information, check out the show notes or check out more information on our website and our social media. So anyway, let's see what Adrian has to say.
So hi, I'm Adrian Lahoud. I'm the Dean of the School of Architecture at the Royal College of Art.
Adrian, thank you so much for joining me. We're really excited because it's approaching the School of Architecture's sharing of work, their exhibition for RCA 2024 coming up in the Truman Brewery in East London. And we can't wait to see what they have in store. How are things feeling in the school at the moment?
Everyone's very excited. It's been really intense. So all of our exams finished just last week. We've got a couple more exams that will take place during the exhibition. But we're on track to the second time we're showing at Truman Brewery, which is also terrific.
Can you give us a bit of an overview of what we should expect from this year's sharing?
Yeah, sure. So the programs that will be showing, we've got an MA in Interior Design, and that'll be organized into 3 different platforms called Super Matter, Super Reuse, and Super Futures, which looks at speculative design strategies, trying to understand what's coming at us in the next 30, 40, 50 years. The MA City Design, which is organized into 2 platforms, one on border environments, which is looking at the border regime in Europe and challenges around migration, and Underground Palestine, which is looking at archaeology, especially as a site of territorial struggle in Palestine. Then we have an MA in Environmental Architecture, which is also divided up into this time 3 units. So there's one looking at the Sahara, and again, quite migrant related and looking at challenges around water in the Sahara. Another project based in Alentejo in Portugal, which is looking at lithium extraction in Portugal, and some of the challenges around environmental toxicity that are being produced by lithium extraction. And then a third studio called Anemois, which is focused on Greece and the island of Crete and looking at some of the challenges they've been having with wildfire. And then I'm not going to list all of the studios in MA architecture because there are 12 of them, but a couple of ones that maybe are worth noting. Cooking sections who run ADS3 are looking at post-industrial wetlands. There's another studio looking at afterlives named ADS8, and that's looking at kind of intergenerational land rights struggles. And then we also, for the first time, are exhibiting work from our school-wide unit. So from the media studies program, which teaches across the entire school and looks at different kinds of contemporary experimentation with non-representational forms of media. So it's quite a lot, 270 students exhibiting in total. So
wow. Yeah.
Biggest exhibition so far.
Yeah, it's really exciting. And how are those kind of projects selected to be worked on?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. So pedagogically, what drives the school is a series of research themes. So we have a research-led teaching model. So for example, we have a research theme that looks at climate justice, another one that looks at the relationship between architecture and social movements, another one looks at institutional forms and practice. And those research themes, and because we have a research-led teaching model, really drive the studio briefs. And so that really sets the content for each of the different studios. And there's a studio-based model of teaching across the entire school. And in interior design, they call them platforms, but it's effectively a small group tutorial of 12 to 14 students organized around research that's being developed by the tutorial leader. That connection between the research practice of the teacher and then the pedagogical direction of the studio is really important in the school.
Brilliant. Is there anything that stands out to you as being, I don't know, particularly exciting because it's a new approach or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's really it's tough because it's really always unfair to single out specific projects. But one of the projects I was really fortunate enough to see during the examinations was a project by Max Cooper Clark, which is really just one of the most extraordinary and moving things I've seen come out of the school for a long time. And he was looking at kind of a project exploring intersectional solidarity between queer communities and miners, and especially a procession of miners that has been involved in this annual event that walks from a small village called Nunthead, which has some of the highest levels of lead poisoning in the world, in the UK, through to Durham, and all of the cultural paraphernalia, banners, brass bands, etc., that are part of that really now very, very long and important tradition of moving through this town. And he intervened by creating a very, very beautiful, actually, in fact, exquisite set of banners that talk about lead contamination in the environment. And it was just I think it's an extraordinary project. So I'm really looking forward to see that. But there are 270 extraordinary projects. So that's just one of them.
Yeah, that's really... Am I correct in thinking that Max was recognised by REBA?
He was last year.
Yeah, brilliant. Thinking on that and kind of this breadth of work that is going to be on show, I think one of the things that sometimes is hard to grasp, especially for people who aren't, in the world of architecture, is that architecture as a study is quite different than what people perceive as architecture sometimes. So before I came to the RCA, I saw architecture as buildings. And actually it's so much more than that. And the students' work that people can expect to see is so beyond that.
Yeah, I think that's really important. So obviously buildings are a really important part of what we do. And in a way that it's still at the core of what we do. I think we have a much more expanded idea of what connects to buildings. Yeah, and what's important around buildings and in buildings. And so, and there's a couple of reasons for that. One is, we're not a school of architecture in a built environment faculty or a planning faculty or an engineering, technical university. We're a school of architecture and art and design college. And so the students are working, next to fashion designers and photographers and sculptors and textile designers. And And so they've already given themselves a permission, I think, to or have an interest in having a proximity to the arts and culture in its broader sense. And that's something that we really embrace as a school. We love that about our, the kind of opportunity being at the RCA affords. So that means the space between artistic practice and architectural practice is a space we really enjoy occupying as a school. I think we do that really well. But also the way the programs are organized. So if you think about the interiors program is supposed to be about rooms, really. The architecture program traditionally is about buildings. The city design program is usually around neighborhoods and blocks. Environmental architecture programs around large-scale landscapes and territories. And so you have what seems to be like some from small to large family of programs. But actually what you find is that the room, the building, the block, and the city and the landscape are just entry points for students. And actually, once they work through that entry point, they're always really interested in exercising different kinds of perspectives and thinking about, what does architecture look like from the perspective of a photographer or from a contemporary artist or from someone working in moving image. And I think that kind of exchange of perspectives is really something that the RCA facilitates. And that I think we really encourage in the school, because it actually means that the students are able to experiment and produce work that doesn't look like it comes out of any other institution.
That's a really good description of it all. Thinking about that kind of cross-interdisciplinary collaboration that our students might have with other students at the RCA, is that something that has come through in the work that we can see?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, so absolutely. So there are always like ongoing discussions happening between, and some of them are formal. So, for example, I know ADS9, which is one of the studios in the MA architecture program, has had an ongoing collaboration with the textiles program. And that's because of the way they think about architecture actually relates to textile production in, I think, fascinating ways. And so that's like a long-standing formal relationship. But at an informal level, what the RCA is like, the students are bumping into people from other programs in workshops and striking up conversations and having ideas about projects. And some of those projects might, manifest during their studies, but they might also manifest in collaborations after they graduate.
Brilliant. Are there any sort of interactive components in the exhibition that we can expect?
Yeah, I'm sure. So one of the things that happened after COVID, as you know, is that architects, and not just architects, interior designers, city designers tend to work with really big physical models. Post-pandemic, everyone started doing moving image work, and it really astonished us because they were really good at it. And it's not something we specifically give a lot of training in. And so we suddenly were just overwhelmed by incredibly high quality moving image work. And it's quite interesting this year. So there's still a lot of work in that kind of moving image interactive space. But we're also seeing students go back to more traditional strategies, like using drawing, for example. So it's kind of moving in two different directions this year, which I think is really fascinating. But the technology dimension is always really important for us.
What's the best way to navigate the exhibition?
Yeah, so this year's exhibition, every year we work with a designer to help us design the exhibition. So this year's exhibition is designed by a tutor in the MA Interior Design program called Steve Jensen. And the entire exhibition is made out of scaffolding, it's normal scaffolding you'd find on a construction site. Now, it's because we wanted to reduce the amount of waste that came out of the exhibition to zero, if possible. Because there's nothing worse. I mean, in an environmentally conscious school with climate justice as one of its main research drivers, to have skips full of trash, which is sadly what happens at the end of most exhibitions. And so we're working with scaffolding this year, and Steve has designed kind of language of pavilions. And so each one of those studio groups that I mentioned before, they all get their own pavilion, and it's kind of adaptable, and they'll get to, manipulate it and transform it so that it speaks to their particular research interest and it presents the work in the way that they want. And so the entire space on Truman is filled with these pavilions. And so my suggestion would be to like wander around them and find things that are interesting to you. And, it's like listening to music. You might not like every song on an album, but hopefully there'll be a couple that resonate.
Absolutely, yes. And what do you want people to take away from the experience?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I hope they get a sense of the spirit of the school. And I think by that, I mean that there's a very, very particular coming together of faculty and students right now in the School of Architecture that feels very alive and vital and committed. And so I think it's a really interesting historical moment in the school. And I hope that comes across. I think it's also very clear this is a generation that are also really focusing on trying to imagine a better future for themselves. And though that's probably a common thing amongst most students in the arts, except that they're doing it at a time of multiple crises. And so the reality of the world they're entering into is becoming more and more challenging in ways that's certainly not true when I was studying, even though we probably had similar kinds of ambitions. And so that sense of kind of seriousness of really trying to radically rethink the world that they're entering into, but that they've done so with a real sense of joy as well. And I think for me, that's extremely important.
Thinking about previous years, are there any students who, they started their projects at the RCA and after that kind of graduation moment, they really carried that project on into their career?
Yeah, actually, that's something that's really common in the school, actually. And so one of the things that we've been really good at as a school is helping students to find their own voice. And even if their idea of practice is sitting, in a slightly alternative space, it doesn't sit, let's say, directly within the conventions of what you might expect to do when you graduate from one of our degree programs. But they've had the confidence and the skills and the networks to go out and establish themselves relatively quickly. And so, for example, the last Venice Biennale of Architecture, I think 23 or 24 of the 90 people that were curated by the artistic director came from the School of Architecture, and so you never know who's going to come to the exhibition. And so it's always a really incredible opportunity. It's the first public platform you get as a student, and not just after, a year or 2 years at the RCA, but after probably, education starting at the age of 4 or 5. So it's a culmination of like a long stretch of education. So it's a really important moment for people as well, because it's really the moment where they start to define their own position and their own view on the world. And to make that position and that view public, I think is extremely important.
What are your hopes and aspirations for students in this moment, this exciting moment that is happening for them?
Yeah, I think it very much depends on the students and what they want, because there are so many different kinds of things that you could do after the end of one of the degrees in the school. And so, as I said before, many of them might want to go out and start their own collective, which many of our students have done. Some of them might just want a viable life and a good work-life balance, which is also perfectly fine. And so be looking for, a work opportunity that gives them that. Others might want to move into a parallel career, look at stage design or music production or theatre or moving image work. I mean, performance, the arts, all of these things are career paths that our students have entered into after graduating. Some of them might just want to work, lead a design team in a big office. And so I think there are all these different opportunities that could come out of the education in the school. I think, I would be most proud if we facilitated that process for them. I don't think we have a view on, I don't think there's one right way to practice. There are so many right ways to practice. And actually our job as an institution is to facilitate them. We need to help them find their own voice. Yeah, and I think that's what we do really well. And then the job of the show is to platform the kind of that voice in a public space for the first time. So if we've managed to help them work out what they might do and maybe offer them, see that there are more possibilities out there than they might have imagined for what practice could look like, then I think I'll be really happy. We've done a good job.
I think that's a perfect moment to finish this conversation. Really looking forward to seeing what the students have in store for us.
It's a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much, Etan.
You've been listening to the RCA 2024 Dean's Downloads, a mini-series as part of the Royal College of Art podcast. RCA 2024 runs from the 20th of June to the 4th of August across a selection of London locations. Find other episodes in this series as well as details of RCA 2024 in the show notes. Learn more about our programmes at rca.ac.uk, as well as finding news and events relating to the college and our application portal if you're interested in studying at the RCA.